Hey guys, how's it going? Thanks for tuning in. My name is Raphael and I'm a happily married father of two with a full-time job, and I squeeze in epic ultra running adventures in between. In 2021, my objective was to do my first 100-kilometer ultra with 6,200 meters of elevation gain on limited training, given my busy life as a parent with a full-time job. What was it they say already? Well, if like me, you ever wondered whether you could go ultra, I have good news for you. Despite our frantic daily family and work life, it is possible to go ultra and remain happily married and keep your full-time job. So I wanted to share with you some tips that worked for me on my journey towards my first ultras. Stay tuned until the end to discover what I consider being the key element to ultra running as a parent. And don't forget to like, subscribe and share if you find this useful. Tip number 1, manage expectations. You won't win an ultra, but you can finish the course despite your scarce time availability. The rule of thumb that is often heard is that for 100-kilometer and 100-mile distances, you need to put in at the bare minimum 9 hours of training per week for 6 weeks before the event, on top of the regular training further out. So this is around 1 hour and 20 minutes per day. So unless you're single without any children and can dedicate all your spare time to training, well, doing this on a consistent basis in our busy family lives is going to be a challenge. Don't aim for a time, let alone winning the race. So sign up with one objective: finishing the race within the cutoff time. Doing this will already be an achievement in and of itself, and will condition the rest of your preparation. This is where I started. Like me, you probably spend a lot of time searching ultra running preparation tips, and much of it confirms what we hear. We need to put in considerable amounts of time to train for an ultra. So when we plug this into our busy parent schedule, it just doesn't fit and we never sign up. Through my experience, what I found out is that it takes lower training than what the theoretical ideal level dictates. Some organization, and accept one reality: your ultra running will become ultra hiking, and you will most certainly finish among the last participants. But that's okay, right? Because the objective is to finish our ultra, not set a time. So in essence, ultra running is not just about running for many of us, it's some running and a lot of power hiking. Why do I start off with this tip? Well, because when most of us start out, we imagine that we have to run all the way, and because this conditions the entire training and time allocation, time that is so scarce within our busy schedules. Essentially, we're aiming at meeting the minimum requirements to finish and therefore allow ourselves to sign up in the first place. Let me run you through a couple of examples that applied to me. The first example is my first short ultra, which was 29 miles and 8,200 feet of elevation gain back in 2017. I prepared this race only on a treadmill during the lunch breaks. Needless to say that I was totally underprepared for this. During the race, I jogged the first 13 miles, which was the flatter section, and then I power hiked most of the rest of the course. I finished just within the cutoff times. I suffered terrible cramping halfway and ached for many weeks after, but it did teach me a valuable lesson. In an ultra, you don't need to run all the way, and I was not alone in doing so. More recently, I did a 100-kilometer race in Switzerland, which had 20,000 feet of elevation gain, and you can check out the film of this race on my channel. Looking at my speed stats over the course, and specifically the red sections which show where I was running, well, as you can see, there are not that many of them. I was power hiking most of the way, whether the section was vertical or flat, and I still managed to reach the end within the cutoff times. So as you can see, the organizers set the cutoff times that enable you to reach the ends with some running, but not constant running. Looking at the Western States course, for example, if I were to prepare that, I would backward engineer how much I really have to run to make it to the finish. If we consider the 30-hour cutoff time and factor in 3 hours of total 8 station breaks, you would need to probably average around 3.8 miles per hour on the entirety of the course, but obviously the profile of the course will dictate your pace. So if you're able to jog at a higher pace than those 3.8 miles per hour in the early part of the course, and before you get sleep deprived, this will already get you ahead of those minimum cutoff times, giving you a buffer for slower sections ahead. That's the strategy I followed in my 100-kilometer race, going at a faster early pace than the bare minimum cutoff time, but way slower than my regular training. So ultra running sounds daunting, but remember, it's not only about running, it's about power hiking for many of us, and this drives a lot of the training. Which brings me to tip number 2. Organized training. Let's not forget that our ambition is to make the finish just within the cutoff time with a lot of power hiking. I break down my training into 2 phases. Phase number 1, training more than 3 months out of the event, and phase 2, training within the 3 months from the event. Phase 1, when the event is more than 3 months out, I focus on overall fitness, usually keeping the hours at the bare minimum. What is the bare minimum? Well, it differs from one person to another based on our starting point. In my case, in the run up to the 100k, I started from the point of no running at all, as I used to stop all running activities in July after the short ultra and didn't pick up the running until late winter. And my training generally focuses on 4 main areas on a weekly basis, which I adapt depending on my family and work schedule. Sometimes you just have to accept that you can't do it all. I do 1 anaerobic session which lasts between 45 minutes and 1 hour and consists of interval training. I head to my steepest slope and give it all for near 1 minute and then jog down for 2 minutes, and I do this around 9 times. This aims at getting my heart rate into what is called zone 5, which is a heart rate above our lactate threshold. In my case, it's getting the heart rate above 163 beats per minute. Basically, you have to try and get your heart rate as high as possible for a short period of time and then let it rest and do it around 9 times. On another day, I do 1 high aerobic session during which I focus on longer stints between 10 and 16 kilometers, and I try to get my heart rate mostly in zone 4, so lower than in the anaerobic session, and I progressively ramp it up. I start off at a moderate pace, and as I warm up, I increase it to get the heartbeat between 146 and 163 beats per minute for the majority of the session. The third session type I do is a low aerobic session to get my heart rate between zones 2 and 3, meaning for me around 109 to 145 beats per minute. And then I do a muscle training twice or 3 times a week, which is a combination of quads, glutes and balance training that takes me around 30 minutes to complete. So more than 3 months out, I'm doing between 3 to 5 hours per week depending on my busy parent and work schedule. The key is putting in something, even if it only means doing 5-kilometer high intensity run that takes only 30 minutes to do. If you can't do a longer run 1 week, then do a couple of shorter runs when you can get a chance. As we get within the 3 months of the event, I'll do my best to increase the load by doing 2 things. 1, longer outings during the weekends, and 2, taking part in shorter distance races. So to give you an example, I would head out early on a Saturday morning and do between 15 to 25 kilometers climb with around 5,000 feet of elevation gain, which takes me around 4 hours in total, getting me back home in time for lunch. I'd also recommend doing 1 very long outing before the event. I did a fully self-sustained 50k with 10,000 feet of D+, and I planned it well in advance to fit my family and work schedule. I don't manage to do these types of exercises every weekend. Life often takes over. That doesn't matter if you're able to keep the normal training and squeeze in a few races. Which brings me to the preparation races. I found that doing shorter races in the run-up to the big event was a great way to get used to the anxiety of the event, getting organized in terms of gear, and also in terms of logistics of how a race actually unfolds. I did 5 races before the big event. I did 3 30-kilometer races with between 5,000 and 8,200 feet of D+, 146 kilometers with 8,200 feet D+, and 150 kilometers with 10,500 feet of D+. You can check out the films of each of these races on my channel. As the big event was going to be 20,000 feet of D+, I had to get in some climbing and descending before the big day. The races gave me that, and combined with the slightly higher weekly training load, I ticked off most of the bare minimum requirements to get ready for the day. The races are a great way to get the miles in whilst also enabling you to organize yourself, your job and your family well in advance as you have a fixed date. Organizing these one-offs is sometimes easier than implementing a regular workout, but it doesn't replace it. Which brings me to tip number 3. Fitting the training time within our family and professional commitments. We have busy lives and finding any spare time is really difficult. But first things first, the initial thing you have to do is talk to your partner and explain what you're about to embark on. Unless he or she met you when you were already doing this, few people understand why in the world we would want to put ourselves through such an ordeal. So chances are that putting ultra running in your life will put some strain somewhere down the line. So it's best to put it on the table early family, explain what you're embarking on, and that you will do your best to minimize the impact on family as much as possible. What does that mean? Well, it means doing your training when you least feel like doing it. Early morning runs during the week, late runs at night, or during lunch breaks. This is what I found the least disruptive on family and work. In the summer, the sun gets up earlier, it's warmer, and it's therefore slightly easier to get the mileage in before anyone wakes up. It's tough, but it gives you a great feeling from having already accomplished a productive activity before the day even starts, and your family doesn't notice your absence. And finally, it also has a benefit of getting you used to discomfort, which is what you will be experiencing during your ultra. Another option I haven't been good at, but which I heard works great for some, is involving your family during weekend training. The kids and partner go out on the bike whilst you run, and they act as a support crew. I find that idea brilliant, but my kids are not yet into doing many kilometers on a bike, so if you have very young children, the best option probably remains early morning runs during the lunch breaks or in the evenings. Ultimately, you will have to sacrifice something. Identify what is most valuable to you and backward engineer that time to what is at the bottom of the priority list. In my case, it's lunch breaks and sleep, so I run early in the morning or midday. Tip number 4. Involving your family. I put in much of my training load in the preparation races during the 3 months run up to the big events, and these became great opportunities to transform a race into a family weekend escape. I did this on several races, taking a few days off and bringing my family to do some sightseeing and hiking, which was great quality family time just before or after the race. And since those races are shorter distances, it's easier to fit within a weekend outing. It's not always easy to do, but where possible, try and choose a race which is near some family-friendly locations. And in my case, I had a couple of races in Zermatt or near touristic location, so it was perfect for my wife and kids. For me, these were key moments with the family, as my objective was to convey specific values to my children, which takes me to tip number 5. Tip number 5 is my key element to going ultra: purpose. For me, this has been the secret sauce to getting to the ends of my ultras as an underprepared full-time parent. Getting that bare minimum training requires motivation. We will not be optimally prepared for the race day, and we will suffer physically, requiring extra mental and emotional strength to get through. As parents, we have limited time, and therefore dedication is probably even more laudable than for professionals who are able to dedicate their entire time to it and probably even earn some revenues from it. So to find the motivation for parents with full-time jobs is key. To find the motivation that fuels our energy to grind through the pain, we need to answer the question of why we're doing it in the first place. Why do we feel the urge to do this? Chances are we're doing this for a greater purpose. This purpose will infuse us with the hidden energy to continue training when we least feel like doing it, or during the worst moments in the race when we want to give up.
Having a bit of a rest now.
The body and the mind can take us so far, but the heart will carry us further. In my case, I was doing this for my children, to concretely show them that through dedication, discipline, and determination, we can achieve anything. Each time I didn't feel like training, or my mind was trying to put it off for another time, I kept reminding myself of why I was doing it in the first place. Humans have a bad habit of seeking comfort, and when our days as parents are already packed with their own challenges, the urge to seek some respite is very high, leading us away from discomfort of the training. The ultra starts right there, by building the strength to push away the thought of comfort and seeking discomfort. It prepares us for the challenges of the actual race. That willpower that pushes away the yearning to follow the easy path to comfort comes from purpose. It will be stronger than anything else, and it helps us find that motivation to grind through. Each one of us has his or her own reasons for embarking on this epic ultra journey, and we have to dig deep to find what it is so that we can turn to it when our motivation falters. This element is key for us as parents, as we will not have the ideal training load going into the race in the first place. We need to substitute the physical preparation gap with a strong heart, and mind to get us over the finish line before the cutoff time. The heart will build a stronger mind, and that mind will in turn inject the energy that we need during the ultra race, as I experienced on many occasions. And like life's ups and downs, you will experience the peaks and valleys during your race. You will have good moments followed by the urge to give up. Your purpose will help you push through that soft patch, and before you know it, you'll be back on track for another good stint. If you can't run, walk. If you can't walk, crawl. But like in life, keep moving and authorize yourself to dare greatly and sign up for your next ultra. So, to summarize, despite the limited time as a parent with a full-time job, we can make it ultra. We need to accept that we'll be power hiking most of the way, organize a minimum amount of training on a regular basis during the least disruptive moments, and then increase the load 3 months into the event with some longer race distances that combine it with family outings and answers the question of why you are doing it, to identify your purpose that will help you find the motivation when you are rock bottom in terms of morale. I hope this helps you decide on doing your first ultra, and remember that all of us parents are in the same boat. Just keep pushing through, never give up, and maybe see you soon on the trails.